Chapter 7, Headed Home. It was time to move on to Sharon's home for the weekend via the interstate, not Highway 280 this time. We needed a smooth ride with my stiff neck and incision. MapQuest showed that the distance is greater, over 50 miles, along the interstate route than Highway 280, but the time is similar because the highway was so very many traffic lights. I confess I did watch for peaches for sale signs along the way as we passed through Chilton County. We needed to stop somewhere for lunch. That would be my first time to visit the ladies' bathroom in a public place in a wheelchair. Alan could not accompany me. I thought we had better use a nice restaurant instead of the fast food so that my wheelchair would fit in. We saw a Cracker Barrel sign and remembered that my baby sister Judy had given us a gift card for that place. In we went. The bathroom visit and the dining went fine with my wheelchair. We left feeling so thankful for the gift card that Alan told me I needed to call Judy up right away and thank her. I did just that. Now that was role reversal, was it not? The little girl I once carried on my hip to the cotton patch when she was hungry was now feeding me via her Cracker Barrel card. Alan found me a cushion for my head in the Cracker Barrel country store section. We had not thought of bringing a pillow along for the trip from the hospital. The cushion carried the verse from Psalms 46:10a, "Be still and know that I am God." The weekend at Sharon and Lewis's home went well. On Saturday, they wore their diving t-shirts from the Whale Shark Adventure. They were quite a pair. Alan had been afraid I might fall in their sunken living room, but I held on to edges about the room and did fine with my walker. We attended a church with a brief service, but it was still wearying for me, so I went straight to bed and slept 2 hours. Sharon got out her clipper set, put on the half-inch attachment, and clipped my hair the same length all over. I looked like Sinead O'Connor. Sharon had given Lewis lots of military haircuts with her clipper set. I knew she could handle it. A special treat was waiting for me at Sharon's. Ellen, my high school friend, living in Auburn, had emailed Sharon's address to my Eva classmates. Several had sent get-well cards with personal notes. I felt closer to them than ever. One of the cards was from Helen, who included in her card the poem at the beginning of this book. She wrote it both as a cancer survivor and to a cancer survivor. She knew about an interrupted life and hair loss. She also encouraged me to write another book. I encouraged her to write a book of her poems since she had written dozens over the years. Another treat at Sharon's was a fresh Georgia peach. It took care of my peach craving, so I didn't miss out on the peach season after all. Alan has made me a fruit junkie. When we were engaged, he told me that he preferred an apple to apple pie. That sounded easy to me. Sometimes he can be tempted with apple pie. Lewis and Sharon's home was as pretty as ever. Since they were both artists, there is plenty of art to enjoy. Sharon was an interior design major in college, and she took advantage of earning a staging certificate when she was a military wife. She never dreamed she would be a military man's wife. She thought she was marrying an artist. But at age 30, Lewis decided it was time to make his dormant dream happen. He went to see an Army recruiter. He had always wanted to be a soldier. Then after 8 years of active duty, he resigned his commission as first lieutenant and landed a job teaching ROTC in Auburn. Later, he found another great job there because of his military training. They liked living in Auburn. I guess the military was their detour, and they survived it. They definitely saw lots of new, interesting scenery along their detour. Maybe my detour was almost over, but the road ahead was definitely going to be a different one. The first week after my stroke, I had asked Allison to call my director at work and let her know that I would have to resign my position at Central Carolina. Allison knew her personally. Teachers returned on July 13th from the annual vacation without me. 4 days later, I had brain surgery. The surgeon placed 3 titanium clips around the bulging blood vessel. Alan and I did not know what was ahead. It was comforting to have each other. We headed out of Auburn on Monday morning, August 17th. weeks after we had first intended to leave it behind. That first day, we stopped for lunch just south of Atlanta at a Chick-fil-A. I entered with my walker. I was wearing a ball cap that Pratty bought me. It had a "I love Jesus" message embroidered on it. One customer walked by and said, "I like your hat." But it was still obvious that I had shaved off hair. The female manager was very kind, came over to my table, and offered to help in any way she could. Alan had been in the bathroom. When he returned and joined us, he asked if I had told the lady what had happened to me. I told her and noticed that tears formed in her eyes when I closed with the statement, "God can use me any way He wants to." My children ordered a wig for me, but it had not arrived by the time we left Auburn. Sharon's hairdresser offered to sell us one at her cost. She had once had a head injury and could relate. Sharon borrowed her wig catalog. Alan and I chose one that we both liked, as similar to my own hair as possible. Actually, it was really an upgrade over my hair. Sharon said she would mail the wig as soon as it arrived. That was one of so many particular providences that occurred to encourage us all. We had grown accustomed to experiencing them, but did not take any of them for granted. George Whitefield once wrote about God's providence. Monday, November 5th, 1739. Had remarkable instances of God answering our prayers which we put up on board ship, and that in the minutest particulars. Oh, that I may watch God's particular providence more and more. It comforts and builds up my soul. How unhappy must be they who would exclude it from the world. Surely such must wander about in worse than Egyptian darkness. To live without a sense of God's particular providence is, in effect, to live without God in the world. From such a state, good Lord, deliver me. How unhappy they must be who would exclude it. We decided to travel toward home as far as Augusta, Georgia, the first day. Alan had to do all the driving now. 4 hours was enough for him. He was 75 years old. We stayed in a hotel and journeyed on the next day. On the last leg of our trip toward home in Anger, North Carolina, a friend from church phoned Alan, told us that he and his wife would be bringing supper for us. I couldn't believe it. From Facebook, I knew that my friend had lost 2 special people in her life to death that week. Now she was taking care of me. They delivered the meal but didn't stay long since we were tired from traveling. Our church was one of the most caring churches we had ever attended. Our yard was not overgrown because of friends of the neighborhood. Alan had phoned our next-door neighbor while we were in Birmingham and asked him to get his yard man to cut our grass too. We reimbursed the neighbor later. Alan called another neighbor and hired him to go inside and install metal handrails in our bathrooms. It was all done when we arrived. Otherwise, the house was just as we left it. Lots of items in the refrigerator had to be thrown away. Who was I now? Is there quality life after a stroke? Days ahead, I began to get some of those answers.